Presenting to you Lies My Teacher Told Me, Stuff My History Teacher Left Out. And the focus of this will be on Christopher Columbus. So I want you to think about what you already know about Columbus, what you've been taught before, just common knowledge, but really how should he be remembered? What should he be remembered for? You should answer that at the end of this lecture. We know that Columbus made 4 voyages to the New World. A better word for that is the Atlantic world. And we're able to piece together from his journals because people wrote during this time, often on a daily basis, especially if you're on a ship, what from his journals and from his men, we can piece together his belief system and really how he treated the natives. Remember, he died thinking he was in the Far East. So the information that I'm going to present to you is from a book called Lies My Teacher Told Me, and this is from one of the chapters. In this book, James Lowen will present 3 main points, which I'll share with you. The first one is Columbus didn't discover America. Second one, there are other explorers that have already made contact with natives before Columbus. And the third one is that all people should hear about how Columbus treated the natives. So the first one, if you really think about it, you understand this. Discover means to obtain sight or knowledge of for the first time. There were already people living there. And I think most people get this first point. The second one, was Columbus really the first explorer? On your table, and please locate. There's a list of explorers. I'm going to just highlight here one group. So Africans never made it in the history textbook, but there is evidence that Africans did make the voyage before Columbus. The Spaniards in their journals commented on the Africans already being in the region, distinct from Native Americans. There are shipwreck remains of African explorers in North and South America. Portuguese sources from Brazil talk about African traders, 45, 50 years before Columbus. There are African diseases found in pre-Columbian corpses, and Columbus's son even talked about the natives as Africans. Now, when you think of Spain, you think of hopefully the 3 Gs, glory, God, and gold. So when they get there, they're obviously looking for gold. But imagine if, like Lowen will argue, that students, when they are studying exploration, they got a list that you will find on your table. Please look at it now versus look at all these European explorers and look at what they did. There is evidence, some low, some moderate, some high, that other people did make this voyage. And imagine what glory that would bring to nations today if this was acknowledged in the historical societies. So again, was Columbus the first explorer? If you think to God and religion, we just finished the Unit 1, Renaissance and Reformation. So hopefully you get a sense for how important religion is to many people during this time period. Spain in particular is going to do whatever they can to go out and convert as many people. So what they would do is they would give you an opportunity to convert. So this statement, and I want you to read this statement to yourself here in bold, had to be read to the natives. That's called the requirement. Once that is read, if the person doesn't like nod or say, yeah, sure, we want to do this. And again, they didn't care if there was a language barrier or not, if people didn't understand. You read this, and if they didn't submit and agree to convert to Catholicism, then they can do whatever they want. And that's exactly what Columbus and his men will do. So how did they treat the Spanish? Columbus and his men will set up a tribute system which will be followed for centuries and very similar in other nations, that every 3 months, anybody over the age of 14 had to bring a bowl of gold dust or 25 pounds of cotton. Now, this is not something that you're going to knock out in a week. This is something that people are laboring for day after day to meet this goal. So they would say, hey, it's tribute day. So they would go, if you came and either gave 25 pounds of cotton or a bowl of gold dust, and you'd get this copper medallion. The next day they would go out, and Columbus and his men They trained their greyhound dogs with them to actually, like, they purposely wouldn't feed them. So they would literally go, if you tried to run away, they would send the greyhounds and they would pretty much maul you to death. If you didn't have a medallion, you would face severe punishment. They would hold you down, obviously, and they would cut off either your hand, good luck meeting the next month's, the next time's tribute, your nose or your ear. We also know from the journals that the raping of Native American women, it was common and it was encouraged by Columbus and his men. It's really hard for us, though, to look at our 21st century values and say, Columbus, you're supposed to be like us. You're supposed to have the same morals and values. Was Columbus just like everybody else? Okay. Um, we have evidence that he was not. Bartholomew de las Casas is, and you can read his quote here that he will send to the Spanish crown. So go ahead and take a second and read that. There's a couple things to point out here. He is criticizing the Spanish and really the system that was set up by Columbus, and really calling Columbus kind of a bad guy here, and talking about the torturing, destroying the native populations. So maybe he wasn't that great of a guy for the time. So should Columbus be remembered for something? So the Columbian Exchange, if you look at this definition, you know that really because of the printing press, new technologies, there will be a permanent cultural diffusion that happens between three continents that starts really after his voyages. So this image may be familiar to you. You guys will be making later in this unit a Columbian Exchange menu. So obviously we still call it Columbian Exchange. So you'll see that's going to have a huge impact on various societies. Was it inevitable that Columbus conquered Native Americans? Well, author James Lowen in Lies My Teacher Told Me says no, it did not have to happen this way. So I want you to go ahead and below this in Canvas, you are going to put Columbus on trial. It is a short video that will present more information, but ultimately I want you to decide if were able to teach a first grade class, or if you're able to teach middle school or high school, if you're able to tell people about Columbus, what would you say? How should Columbus be remembered? After you put Columbus on trial, you should be watching this. After you put Columbus on trial, I would like to tell you about a recent news article about a Columbus statue that we have in St. Louis. Just last week, there was a story on KSTK about Tower Grove residents are disputing over a Christopher Columbus statue. And this is what, if you've been there, this is what it looks like. It's a great, huge statue right at the beginning of the park, and it's to commemorate Columbus. One of the major protesters for taking it down is I wanted to point out Josh Hafley says, I don't think it's a problem in this park because Christopher Columbus is the one who discovered the Americas. It's never been an issue until now. There was a protest, I believe 2 Saturdays ago, that people went to try to get this down. This is where the Festival of Nations is, and there's still like a Facebook group on this. So I just wanted to let you know about this, and feel free to search this and just look at this short news clip to see this issue is still being debated, and this is a local issue. When you are finished with looking at all of these resources, listening to this lecture, putting Columbus on trial, please take the short questionnaire online, which you'll find right below this in modules, to make sure that you understand and you have a decision for how you think Columbus should be remembered. Thank you. Happy Wednesday.